Good morning and welcome to this morning's session on effective collaboration with the Google Suite. And today what we will be covering is the purpose of having a collaboration platform like this, and how to get access to Google Suite, how to set it up, and how you can use it effectively with your team. So let's just quickly pray and then we'll get stuck into it. God, I thank you for this day, and I just pray that the information and discussion today will be fruitful and will just help build upon the resources and the tools that we have to serve you effectively. Amen. Excellent. So I will be sharing my screen. Whoops, which one have I shared? Let's try that again. Don't double click. Okay, so I do have a few slides. Most of them are fairly informative and have links to them. So I won't be showing you all the slides today, but they will be provided to you after this session. And the links are probably what's going to be most useful for you. And then we'll also, through the screen share, go through a number of the steps that are involved with preparing Google Suite. So just to start with, what's the purpose of collaborating online? And there are several benefits that I've had and demonstrated through experience, and that just help by having everything in the one place. So having the one platform, the one system, is going to help provide consistency for you and your team. It means there aren't going to be lots of data and files all over the place on different people's computers that can easily get lost, or if you've got a device gets stolen, or it develops some sort of a bug and you need to wipe the whole system. So having everything in the one place makes it much easier to control and retain your data. And having it up in the cloud is also, with a established system such as Google or Microsoft or Dropbox, one of those ones, they're not going to disappear off the planet. They are very secure. It doesn't mean that a system is foolproof, but those ones, the big ones particularly, have a lot of security features and measures in place. So when we collaborate online, it will help to raise the bar for your team and create an expectation that you're stepping up. We're doing things not just for the sake of doing things differently, but there's just a more controlled process and way of doing it, which can provide more certainty and build trust and just help with that collaboration together. So I've mentioned that it's going to reduce the risk of losing your data. As we use the collaborative tools, they are real-time, multi-user collaborative tools. So imagine having a Word document open, but you've got multiple people on multiple devices who can all input into the document at the same time. What that does is, when you're working on it together or even separately, but you've all got access to the file, then you're not needing to email files back and forth, drafts back and forth, draft 1, 2, 3, 5, 17B, final A, final B. So what that does is it reduces the number of emails you have, the number of attachments. You don't lose which version that you're up to and people missing out or forwarding emails and all that sort of thing. So it actually reduces your emails, the number of attachments, and you've got improved document version control. So even with these systems, you can roll back to previous versions, but it's done in a much more systematic way. Everything is synced and up to date, so you can install all of these Google apps onto your computer or onto your tablet or phone, and they're just synced along the way. So you don't sort of have that mismatch of versioning at any point. As I said, multiple people can be editing files at once. And ultimately, what this does is you've got a reliable system, you've got better processes in place, which is going to save you and your team, without exaggerating, it will save hundreds of hours. And the more you use it, the more that time saved will increase. And what that then does is it allows you to have fewer meetings, for that, functional aspect of things. It will, you won't be sort of fishing around for files and emails anywhere near as much as you have. And that's going to mean that you can work on more of the core aspects of what your job is, whether that's preparing better teaching or more resources, or being more pastorally engaged with your community. Make sense so far, Barry?
Does indeed, thank you.
Excellent, great. So I've also got a link there you can check out later, which I've demonstrated before, just on how much time you can save by reducing tasks, and then you can put an actual figure on it and multiply that by the number of people in your team. It's just a crude measurement of how much time you can actually save in a year, and therefore if you put a cost on that as well, how much time, how much money you could be saving as well. So feel free to check that out later. So today specifically, we're going to look at Google Suite. By no means is it the only collaborative platform that's available online, but with Google Suite, it is very established. It's been around for a long time. And really the key benefit for not-for-profits and churches is that you can access it for free, and you can have as many people on it under your domain account. So, the main applications as part of the suite, which I use all the time, Gmail, which is your email component, Google Contacts, and all these apps sort of integrate with each other. So then you've got your contacts, which is like, your address list of everybody in there. Google Drive, which is your file storage system. Google Docs, which is basically the equivalent to Microsoft Word. Google Sheets, which is the equivalent to Microsoft Excel. Google Slides, which is the equivalent of Microsoft PowerPoint. And Google Forms, which is just sort of simple forms you can create, which integrate then into a sheet. So you can make forms publicly available for people to fill out, and then you've got all the data coming through into a sheet. Google Meet is Google's version of basically Zoom or Microsoft Teams, so you can have video conversations with your team. Google Calendar, YouTube. So each user who's under your free domain account as a church has up to 30 gig of storage space, which, unless you're uploading lots of videos, that should look after you for quite a long time. And as I said before, you can access it on computer, tablet, and phone. And here's a list of the features that are available, and I've mentioned a few of them there, but you can look further into all of these if you wish. That's just a summary of what we've just discussed there. So how do we get this magical access to the Google Suite for free? Because typically for businesses, you pay per user per month, and it might be something like $8 or $9 per user per month. So this platform, which is called Connecting Up, they've been around for well over 10 years here in Australia and New Zealand, and they have they provide the charity status for technology when you're accessing products that are part of that they've got partnerships with. And so you get free or discounted hardware and software, regardless of whether you are going to go forward and prepare, the Google Suite for your organization. I still strongly recommend that you get a Connecting Up account, which is free to do, because you'll get access to discounted hardware, software. So for example, if you need, one or several new computers or laptops or tablets or phones, whatever it is for your organization, you get access to discounted hardware in that way. And what was I going to say with that? It's gone, but yeah, there are benefits, lots of benefits to getting it, and it's free to register. So I strongly suggest doing that. So to register, you simply fill out this form here on connectingup.org. And then there'll be a verification along the way of your status. You need to just provide a certificate, or if you're a charity, you can use your ACNC number or your ABN, whatever it is that they need to see. So you go through that process. It doesn't take very long to do. And then once you've got your Connecting Up registration, then you can get access to the Google Suite for free. And so then you need to go through the process here to verify through the connection that Connecting Up has with Google. And there's the G Suite for not-for-profits that we have access to. It's the same with Australia here. So then you just go through the process here, getting started to verify your church's eligibility. And you have that, you'll need to provide them with the Connecting Up registration, whether it's a username or something like that. So those two links are there, and that will get you on the way to getting access to the Google Suite. From that point, you can set up Google Suite when you get in. So there's, it's a little bit technical and administrative at this point, and it does take a little bit of time if you're not very familiar with it. It can seem a little bit daunting, but this is basically the hardest part, because then you need to verify with Google that the address that you've set up with them, so for example, barry@anglicanchurch.org, for lack of a better thing. So using your domain name, it needs to verify that your domain name, which you're using for your Google Suite account, is actually yours. So then you need to have access to your web host, where you've got your website, and you need to sort of put a little bit of information in your back end there. So that's probably the most technically challenging part. So once you get in, you've got this setup wizard, and they will take you through step by step on how to do that. Oops, so I'll just give you the dummy version. I won't go through all of this, but just so then you're familiar with what it looks like. So this is the admin console, admin.google.com. Users and groups, that's the next step. I'm wanting to show you the verification step. I think because I've already done it, I can't demonstrate that right now. But what I'll do, verify and welcome. Try that one. I was able to see this before. Okay, so what you need to do is, I've got another link here. So you verify your domain for G Suite, and make sure you've got your login for your web hosting, your domain hosting. And then you need to go into your DNS settings. It gets a little bit technical at this point. If you're using Gmail, the mail aspect of it, you will need to provide MX records. This is the most technical bit. So under Setup Gmail, it tells you these MX records which you need to add in. And then for the verification, you also have, you have to put in a text or a CNAME record as well. And if you don't have access to that, you can add a meta tag or an HTML file to your website. So this is one of the links I've got in the presentation slides. And these instructions can get you through it. If you're still stuck, there are lots of other videos online, or myself or another IT system support person could help you set that up as well. As long as you've got access to your domain hosting, that's probably the most important thing that you need. So that's, again, don't let this be the stumbling block to not get it. This is just sort of the main hurdle which you might face technically. But after this point, it will be much easier to administer everything. You do it once and you never have to do this part again. So then you can set up all the users in your account. So whether it's sort of just you and other staff members, I guess would be the main people who you would add. Potentially you might add board members as well. That might get a little bit trickier, but you can bulk add people, or you can add people one by one. In the Google admin section, so this is the wizard part, but if you step back out, there's other aspects to the administration of Google. So you've got users, you can add users by bulk or just one at a time. You can manage the apps. So I'll open that one up. There's security. There's several other things here. You don't need to worry about most of them. So here's the user list where you can add more users. So here my domain is evanie.com.au, and I could add, I've got a support one. You could set up a finance one, a prayer one, an info at, or you could go by name, Barry S, John G, Susan L. You just add in new users there. So the applications that are available, as we spoke about before, by default, they're all available to all your people, but you can actually turn on and off the which ones people have access to, either across the board for all your organization, or just for individuals if you don't want everyone to have, if you've got individuals who need specific access or less access for whatever reason. And there are a whole lot of settings within there as well. But generally, most of the default settings for the Google Suite, you don't need to play around with on the whole. So that is, the main, again, that's the main technical barrier there. So verifying the domain, setting up Gmail so that your emails then go through Gmail instead of another email client, and adding users. And here's the documentation that will be helpful for you.
Good, thank you. Good.
Now, I think like one of the key things, there are lots of different apps, and I think the main one I want to sort of work with you today is around Google Drive, which is the file storage system, and then the other apps that create files within the Google Drive, which are Google Docs, which is Word, Google Sheets, which is Excel, and Google Slides, if you want, which is like the presentation software. And actually this presentation that I've created for you today is a Google Slide presentation. And like if you weren't looking closely, if I didn't show you this, you probably would have just thought that this was a PowerPoint presentation anyway. Technically, it's not. It's a Google Slides presentation, but I do have the ability to download it as a PowerPoint or PDF or other formats as well. The same with Google. I'll just show you my, my notes here for today's session. I've done my notes here in Google Docs. And again, I could save it as a docx file if I needed to share that with someone else who didn't have access into here. So with all these Google app platforms such as Doc Sheets and Slides, they do about 90% of what your standard Microsoft Office applications do. They're a little bit lighter, but they're, you know, even just looking at a glance, it does look all fairly familiar. These sorts of icons here, the functionality, the menu looks similar. Even the the keyboard shortcuts are very similar as well. So it should be fairly familiar and intuitive for most people if they've used Office products in the past. Anyway, we'll take a step back from there and we'll talk about Google Drive first. Where was it? Yes, back in here. I'll just continue the presentation. So uploading and storing files. It's, you know, Google Drive is a file storage system. Again, you get 30 gig of space. So you wouldn't want to sort of put too many videos up on there, but you could store as many files you want until the cows come home, basically. Now, an advantage, you know, of having this system in place is that you can download a desktop version, and also if you've got your phone device, you can access it on there as well. With the desktop version, what you will see is my Windows File Explorer, and when you've got the Google Drive set up, you would get this added into your file system. Here it says Google Drive.
Yep.
And then that will be pretty much out of the box. It replicates, you know, and synchronizes your structure in Google Drive. So I haven't shown you Google Drive yet. This is Google Drive. So here are all your folders, and then you've got other files underneath that, and then files, you know, inside each folder as well. So you set up the structure however you want. That would be emulated in your File Explorer here if you've got the desktop app set up. So Google Drive, and then that would, all of the tree of folders is the same. And so here I'm going into another subfolder, Anglican Diocese of Melbourne, and this is where I've got my slides for the presentations that I've done so far. The blue one here is my notes document, which I showed you before. This green one is the Google Sheet. And then I can add any other files that I want in here.
According to Wikipedia, sheep are quadrupedal, ruminant mammals typically kept as livestock, like most ruminants.
Something's telling me something I don't need to hear. And I can simply add more files into here. If I don't have the Google Drive installed, I can still add anything I want into here. So this is my logo, and I'm just going to drag and drop it straight in. And you can see down here, it's uploading it, and that's done. And now my logo is there. So you can just, you know, drag and drop files in. That's very, very easy to do. Regardless of if you've got the desktop app installed or not. I've just deleted it by pressing delete. It's that simple. Then I can add from within Google Drive. I can add a folder. I can upload one file like I drag and drop, then you can just upload through this method instead. You can upload an entire folder from your computer, again, if you don't have the desktop app installed, or you can create, start to create Google Docs, Google Sheets, and Google Slides, and other things such as forms. So let's do it. I'm going to create a new Google document. It's saying create and share because I've shared this folder with someone else already. So it's just saying I'm going to be using the same permissions on this file which I'm creating. And we are going to call this file Barry and Evan's important meeting. And so I'm going to create a heading. Again, I'll just make it an H1 heading. And today's date, which is the, 6th of May today, 2020. And I can make that that. And then we go on the way. Agenda, ... From in here, I can share this file with anyone I want to by giving them, by just adding their email address in, or I can make it available to anyone who has the link. So I can copy this link. I'm going to share it here in our chat window. And then Barry, I'm going to invite you to jump into this. And I'll actually make it that you can edit it. So done. Another way, that I could share it is I could just email that through to you. So you would then receive an email with the link in there. I'll do that now. You don't have to access it now, but what will happen is you will receive an email.
Well, I'm back there.
So I've shared that with you and you've got access. Now, if I was a second person logging in again, I'm going to open this up in a different browser as a second person. And what you'll see here up the top is this is my icon from my official logged in version of me.
Yep.
But then back in the other one, there's this icon up here calling me an anonymous chinchilla. It puts a different random animal icon in there. And what that means is that I, as Evan myself, can see that someone else is currently on this page.
Okay.
And so what I'll do is I'll put them side by side. So
Yep.
This is Evan, this is the chinchilla thing. And now I'm going to be typing as the chinchilla over here. I'm the chinchilla. And as you can see at the same time in my Evan display, it's showing that that the chinchilla is typing at the same time. And then Evan can write back saying, hello and welcome, chinchilla.
Okay.
So this is real-time collaboration, and you can have as many people as you want in there. So Barry, if you get into there, it will show an extra icon here. If you're logged in with a Google account, then it will say Barry Smith. But if you weren't logged in and you were just an anonymous person with editing rights, it would say anonymous giraffe or something else instead. And so that is how we can have multiple people collaborating on a document together, or you can do it, or you can jump in later. It doesn't have to be at the same time. And this share button is how you can share with other people. Oops, now it said Martin Smith.
That's me.
Oh, that is you. Great, good. Now, the other thing to note in here is there are different levels of editing access or of file access. So the main ones are view access, comment access, and edit access. Viewing means that a person can see the document, but not, it's a read only, they can't edit it. A comment is somewhere in the middle. It means they can add comments, but they can't physically edit the document without the comments being approved by the owner or editor. And then there's edit, which means you can do stuff. There's one more level of permission called owner, but you can only do that back in the Google Drive, which means you can change who actually owns the file. And that can only be one person, but you can have multiple editors, multiple commenters, and multiple viewers. You can also, you know, with this, make it available for anyone to be able to view, comment, or edit, or to be more secure, you can make it that only specific people can do it. So not just any anonymous person, and they need to be logged in with their Gmail account. So now I've turned that off, and that would mean if I refresh over here, I don't have access to it anymore. If I then do the commenting, anyone can comment, and I refresh over here, I may not be the chinchilla anymore. I may be a different animal now. What am I going to be this time? A rhino. And now I can't edit, but I can add a comment for approval. So that's not, I then need to approve that over here, or accept the suggestion. Yes and yes. Great. So viewing, commenting, editing, and owner permissions for files, and similarly for folders as well. So if we set up a new folder called Barry and Evan, there's the new folder up here. I'm going to put our document, I'm actually going to move that into the folder there, and I can give sharing permissions across the whole folder. So then I can have multiple documents in there, and I don't have to, for every single document, give explicit permission to each person, but I can just do that across the whole folder. So once again, I can say, Barry, whatever your address was, I didn't have it, sorry. Bar Smith, that's the one. And again, I can say, well, can you only view it, or you can edit as well. And here I can change the sharing permissions for a document from Google Drive. And this is where I've got the ability to make you the owner. Cool. So I won't do that for now. And also what happens is when I invite someone, so I'm going to invite myself in this way, I can add a message as well, because that person will receive an email by default, unless I switch off notify people. And I can customize the message that they'll receive as well to give more clarification on what it is that they're receiving. This is the document we discussed, ... So let's go back. Thank you, Rhino. You've done a good job. So we've discussed adding folders. We've discussed Google Documents. Google Sheets is similar. We can just do a quick run through of that. And we've discussed the folder and document and sheet permissions.
Good.
Again, we'll just very quickly open up a Google Sheet, which is like Excel. It's collaborative in exactly the same way that we saw with the Google document. So we can share it and add people in, and multiple people can be editing things. Name, time, category, status. I'm going to make it bold for that top line. Evan, Barry, you get the idea. It's very similar to an Excel spreadsheet. And then the overall functionality is works for Google Drive. You can share all that sort of thing. So far, what has been I don't know, what have you seen and what's of interest to you, Barry?
It's an overview, and I can now understand better when I go back and consider it and all the rest of it. So that's the first thing.
Yep.
Which is what my aim is, to audit it, so I might understand a bit better. Secondly, I'll never use it because I'm not a team leader. I'm just a retiree now, and this will never be used in the church I attend because it's beyond them to do it, beyond the leadership to do it.
Okay. Yep. To set it up or just to use it in general?
Well, to set it up really, but that can always be handled by just getting someone to do it for them. But they wouldn't use it. It's not the style of the priest to act collaboratively in that way.
Yep.
So it's been interesting and good for me to be informed, and I can see what's happening. I can explore it a bit more and think, is this something useful for you? Could you do? How might you apply it in the very limited and restricted roles that I have? So that's good, and I appreciate it.
The other thing then to note as well as an individual is that when you get a Gmail account, for example, so if you wanted Barry Smith 3000 at gmail.com or Barry Smith,
yeah, I've got one of those.
Yeah, so then you've got access to Google Drive. You've got access to all the same applications here. And even as an individual, you can share your folders, your documents, your sheets with other people as well. So all this functionality can be used by anyone with a Google account. So it's not, that element of collaboration, even if it's just a one-off thing, can still be utilized.
Good.
Yep. So I mean, yeah, just my final thoughts for wrapping up.
I could write them for you if you like.
Yeah, sure.
Dear Rhino, why are you so dumb?
No, not at all.
See ya.
No. No.
Oh, yes.
You're too hard on yourself. It's harder. Well, I think what made it more difficult as well is that because we've got the Zoom screen open, that sort of overlays everything else if you're trying to do other functions within that. So if we didn't have Zoom open, it would have been more straightforward. If you go back to your email now, because I sent you that invitation via email, you can then click on that. Yeah, you can click on that link and then you'll have access to there anyway. So it wouldn't be as difficult. It's because we're sort of overlaying Zoom, it's sort of another thing that obstructs the process, whereas that wouldn't be the case in real life. So my final thoughts here today are, if you've got any, if there's any possibility that your organization, your not-for-profit or church may require discounted hardware or software, get a Connecting Up account. You know, the benefits we've spoken about is that you have everything in one place.
Yeah.
You reduce the risk of losing files and data, particularly if you've got one computer or a USB drive as a backup. Things can very easily go wrong. I worked with a Christian charity or not-for-profit that, you know, they had their entire membership in a spreadsheet on one person's laptop, and the laptop died about 8 different times. And that's so risky. And then, you know, if you've got backups, you know, on different drives, you know, thumb drives, and you're trying to remember which one, and, you know, that was from 3 years ago or something like that. It's not a good way. It's not good practice doing things that way. Again, these tools help to reduce email and attachment. It reduces confusion over versions of different files. Make sure you've got this is just good practice anyways, to make sure that as a leader of an organization that you've got access to your domain name and your web hosting details. So often I come across organizations that they're scrambling to try and dig it up from someone's email from 5 years ago
No,
who
that'd be
aren't
true.
even on staff anymore. And
That's
these
right.
are like crucial account details that you need. And you want to make sure that the right people have the right access to these, you know, the account names and who's got administration access to things. Yeah, if that could be cleaned up by organizations, that they'd be, you know, one big step ahead. Well, I really appreciate your eagerness to learn, Barry, and your participation today. And yeah, I mean, if I can be of service to a church that you know, please feel free to pass on my details. Thank you for your time, and bless you with everything that you put your hands to.